I was a very driven person, like many of us are. We just push through. And, I told doctors, I told therapists what was going on. They told me I was depressed, put me on antidepressants. And I think that happens to a lot of, especially young women, is instead of looking a bit deeper at physiology or things that could be causing it, it's assumed that you're depressed, go to therapy, be on an antidepressant. And really, the more people told me that things were normal, like I had gone to the doctor with severe abdominal pain that I was getting about once a month when I was running. And I was told that that's just normal. It's normal to be doubled over in pain like that. And so a lot of things I was told was just normal and I just had to live with it, or I just had to work on my own psychology. And I think I normalized that for myself. And then underneath that, though, something was driving me into like, no, it doesn't have to be this bad. You shouldn't have to take 1-minute naps every couple hours to try to get through your day. I don't have to live this depressed. And that really kept driving me, that inner knowing that something could be different really drove me to keep seeking out alternatives and turning away from conventional medicine. I ended up getting diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. And in that, the range for thyroid, for example, is very broad, healthy thyroid function. So a lot of hypothyroidism gets missed unless you have a doctor that's looking at the more functional range, the more optimal range, which is rare to find in conventional medicine.
Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Break podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nafisa Sikandri. Today, I'm excited to speak to Dr. Jenn Mann, a naturopathic and holistic medical professional. Let me briefly introduce her before I bring her on. Dr. Jenn Mann is a naturopathic doctor and the founder of the Nova Wellness in the San Francisco Bay Area. Inspired by her own journey through chronic fatigue, anxiety, and other unresolved health challenges, despite being told her labs were normal, she turned to holistic medicine and discovered the root causes of her symptoms, including Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and endometriosis. Refusing to accept a life limited by chronic conditions, she healed through integrative care and was inspired to help others do the same. At Nova Wellness, Dr. Mann takes a whole person approach that honors the connection between physical, emotional, and spiritual health, supporting clients in creating nourishing, joyful, and purpose-driven lives through personalized care, workshops, and community gatherings. Hi, Dr. Mann. Thank you for joining the program.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to talk to you. You're a naturopathic doctor. So before we get started, I know I just briefly introduced you. Can you just briefly tell us the difference between a naturopathic doctor and a regular Western physician, allopathic doctor, I guess? Just to tell us a little bit about that, and then your own background with your own health issues and how it led you to where you are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. I mean, for me, my personal journey, and I also didn't know, what's a naturopath, what's a conventional doctor. When I went into it, I just knew I wanted to practice medicine. I wanted to be helping people, and I was looking around at all different types of medicine. And then my friend invited me to go to an open house at a naturopathic doctor's school while I was applying to regular medical school. And I went and I learned about the psychology, the background, the philosophy of naturopathic medicine. I just fell in love with it. And naturopathic medicine really is about helping the body to heal itself. It's really about supporting the body's wisdom, its knowledge to rebalance things that have gotten out of balance. And we believe in using the healing power of the body to heal itself. We believe in education. We believe in using the least strong thing to make a correction. So sometimes that might involve pharmaceuticals, but typically involves more lifestyle and education and things like supplements and herbs. So it's the same as conventional medicine in the sense like our training is to become a primary care doctor. So I'm in California. I can be a primary care doctor in California, but our toolbox is very different. Our toolbox is much more lifestyle, herbs, supplements, education. And we use a range of tools to assess the body that are a bit different too. So in conventional medicine, you're going to get regular labs with kind of standardized lab values that are really mostly for hospitals and to detect very severe aspects of illness. In naturopathic medicine, we can use other testing that can look more nuanced at what's going on and really look more at like imbalances and bringing true health. So a lot of the same origin, like it's Western medicine. We use the same model of the body. We use physiology and biochemistry, but a really different tool set. And I think a really different assumption about what the body can do and how it's made to heal.
And your own health issues led you to looking at alternative ways of healing yourself. And I know I have a similar story to how I ended up becoming more of a holistic mental health provider. Can you share a little bit about what you were going through and why was it that the labs that were considered normal weren't?
Yeah, great question. So I started having imbalances in my body when I was like 12 years old. I started developing depression and fatigue, and I was a very driven person, like many of us are. We just push through. And, I told doctors, I told therapists what was going on. They told me I was depressed, put me on antidepressants. And I think that happens to a lot of, especially young women, is instead of looking a bit deeper at physiology or things that could be causing it, it's assumed that you're depressed, go to therapy, be on an antidepressant. And really, the more people told me that things were normal, like I had gone to the doctor with severe abdominal pain that I was getting about once a month when I was running. And I was told that that's just normal. It's normal to be doubled over in pain like that. And so a lot of things I was told was just normal and I just had to live with it, or I just had to work on my own psychology. And I think I normalized that for myself. And then underneath that, though, something was driving me into like, no, it doesn't have to be this bad. You shouldn't have to take 1-minute naps every couple hours to try to get through your day. I don't have to live this depressed. And that really kept driving me, that inner knowing that something could be different really drove me to keep seeking out alternatives and turning away from conventional medicine. I ended up getting diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune thyroid condition. And in that, the range for thyroid, for example, is very broad, healthy thyroid function. So a lot of hypothyroidism gets missed unless you have a doctor that's looking at the more functional range, the more optimal range, which is rare to find in conventional medicine.
Yeah, it's amazing how so many things are normalized, or there's a pill that's associated with that ill, if you may. So I was the same way. I mean, when I had severe cramps for my menstrual cycle, I was like, okay, just take Midol or whatever, take a pill that kind of numbs the pain. Or I was offered surgery when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, or birth control pills. And thank God that I didn't have insurance at the time that I was diagnosed. So I couldn't afford the surgery. So I had to look for alternative ways to heal myself. And that's how I got on the path of trying acupuncture, trying herbs, trying to supplement, changing my lifestyle, changing my diet. And all of that made such a difference, not only with my physical symptoms related to endometriosis, but also improved my mood, gave me more mental clarity. And I know I deal with a lot of women between 35 and 50 that get diagnosed with depression and anxiety because their hormones are fluctuating. And it's not really about depression or anxiety. It's just their hormones are going all out of whack and their mood is affected. And so the solution isn't more pills. It's about really evaluating what's going on. And I'm assuming all of that is your story as well, right?
1,000%. And then, I was doing all the things. I was going to therapy. I was doing all the self-help. And then once I started treating my thyroid, after that got diagnosed, all of a sudden, all that started working. But it was like I was doing all this inner work, all this emotional work, mental work, but it's like it didn't have the substance to stick to. And I think that's a huge gap between like mental health and physical health. Is like no one's saying like, do you have the substance literally to change your brain, to change your nervous system? Maybe you don't have the B12 or the vitamin D or the thyroid hormone or other hormones. You can do all that psychological, spiritual, emotional work, but if it doesn't have the substance to stick to, we are physical creatures. So it has to land somewhere. And oftentimes that's totally missing.
And that foundational need, like the connecting the mind, the body, and the spirit, a lot of people just think, I'm just going to only focus on the symptoms of my anxiety or my depression or my thyroid or my gut or whatever, only focusing on one thing at a time. That's a
Yeah.
very Western mindset. So is naturopathic medicine, it is getting to the root of the issues, allowing the body to heal. Can you talk a little bit about how that supports us by connecting our whole mind, body, spirit together so that we can allow our body to heal?
Yeah, I think that on one level, there is the body as a whole. Even looking at the body as a whole is still pretty radical. And what I love about naturopathic medicine, the root of that is nature, right? And so I think of the body as an ecosystem. When you look at an ecosystem, you have all the different elements of a healthy ecosystem: the water, the land, the flora, the fauna, and you need all of those healthy, just like in your body. If you just focus on the gut or you just focus on the thyroid, it's often not enough. And we call this the terrain. You want the entire terrain of your body to be healthy. You want the gut to be healthy, have enough nutrients, have your hormones be balanced, your blood sugar be balanced, decreasing toxicity in the body, good, healthy diet that's really fueling you. So when we work with people, we work with you over time to like go through all these different elements. And just that alone, the thought like, oh, I need to treat all of my body gets people a lot farther than just taking this to affect hormones or bioidentical hormone therapy, which is fine. But if the whole terrain is not addressed, then you get mixed results with that. So if you're someone who's like, well, I have this part dialed in, but this isn't, getting that holistic support can be really helpful.
Well, sometimes when we're only focusing on one thing at a time, we're just slapping a Band-Aid on that. Like if you, I like the analogy of if you're growing lettuce and the lettuce isn't doing well, you're not automatically going to blame the lettuce or toss the lettuce. If this is continuing to happen, you're going to start looking, going, what's going on with the soil? Is the lettuce getting too much sun? Is the lettuce getting too much water? Are there bugs here that are destroying the lettuce? Are the weeds around the lettuce killing the lettuce? And so we're so quick to look at things outside of us and be more mindful and evaluate to see what's going on. What's the root cause of what's happening so we can avoid the problem? But when it comes to ourselves, it's like, no, I just want to take a pill just to get rid of the headache or just get rid of the stomach ache or just put a Band-Aid on this gaping wound that's like festering and sore and just rotten. But yet I'm just going to keep putting bandages on it instead of really figuring out what's going on with it. Why is it not healing? And that's what I love about the concept of naturopathic medicine and Eastern medicine and a holistic and integrative medicine and alternative medicine, whatever you want to call it. It just should be medicine. It should have, like you said, a wide range of tools in our tool belt. If one isn't working, let's try another one and see. And what you just talked about, the terrain, when people are looking at that, they might be like, oh my God, that's so overwhelming. I have to do so many things. And I didn't do everything overnight. I slowly unraveled, peeled the onion. I tried the diet. If that didn't do it, then let me go try this supplement, try this herb. Let me go try acupuncture. It just happens over time, but it's a matter of just being open to trying different solutions. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that's just my view on it.
It's a great topic because look at the world now. Like if you're on Instagram, Facebook, all these things, like you're getting thrown thousands of wellness products and you'll be like, well, how do I do this? And then there's longevity and biohacking. And, it's like, how do you prioritize? Yeah. How do you suss through that? I think a lot of people are very overwhelmed right now. A lot of my work has turned into like just helping people sort through all the information out there. Yeah. So it's very common to feel that way. I think cultivating the sense of your inner healer. So staying, like I was sharing earlier, I had kind of a voice within me that was like, I can feel better than this. Like, I just know that. And to keep it curiosity about it, to keep an openness about it. And probably each thing that you try, there's going to be some takeaways that work for you. And there's going to be some things about it that don't work for you. So I think there is being open in that way and redirecting to your inner knowing and relating to yourself and your own progress for yourself, not comparing yourself. So I think that's one really important piece. And the truth is there's also a lot of pieces. And to get help from, a naturopath or a coach or, whoever you want to partner with at that time to help take you through the steps in bite-sized pieces, because there really is a wisdom to how the body heals. In naturopathic medicine, there tends to be a certain order, a general order that we work on things through. We tend to do the foundational pieces like food and sleep and stress management before going into gut clearing or treating infections or things like that. So if you can work with someone who has experience and partner with them, that makes a huge difference too. As they can
I'm
get you
glad
there
you said that.
faster.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I like the concept of if you want to go faster, go with a master. I mean, obviously, I didn't do it by myself, but back when I was 20 years ago, when I was trying to figure all this out, this wasn't a common concept that was talked about. So I had to do my research, and I didn't have access to the internet the way we have now. We didn't have all the influencers telling us what to do. So I did do the research, and a lot of my doctors weren't happy with me. They were just like, you're not doing things right, because I was like, no, I'm going to try acupuncture instead, or I'm not going to have surgery right now. But find people that know what they're doing and they've been there, invest in your health. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to find the right books. But now there's so many, like you said, coaches, naturopathic doctors, so many clinics that are doing amazing work like yours. Reach out and invest in yourself. And sometimes maybe insurance isn't covering it. I don't know if it's covering it for you, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. But I'd rather get a more holistic perspective for me to make sure that it's aligned with my whole body as opposed to just focusing on one thing at a time. But can you talk a little bit about that? Just the investment that it takes. It's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about time. It's about commitment. It's about making sure you're going to bed on time. So can you talk a little bit about that and why it's important for us to become advocates for ourselves?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, the conventional medical system or kind of the sick care model is just there to give you medications or certain labs when you reach a certain level of illness. And these other therapies that we're talking about are really there to create health. And the creation of health does take time. And I mean, for me, it was a 30-year journey, really, before I broke through completely on not having illness in my body anymore. So as a mentor, I'm trying to move people through that process in a year or 2 or 3. But it is something that requires you taking things into your own hands. And with that, I think there's this, for a lot of people, this aspect of like, am I deserving of that? I can give myself the health insurance that my employer pays for example. Maybe you feel adequate to do that. But this idea of like wanting to heal and then being deserving of your healing, of knowing that you're worthy of feeling as good as possible, sometimes there's some inner work to do there. I believe everyone is here to live into their potential, to lead the biggest, most loving, present life possible. And the year before I fully broke through, I think I spent $50,000 on my care that year. I was just getting so desperate and was willing to do anything. And I don't regret investing that much at all. It certainly doesn't have to cost that much for anyone, but there was, I want this bad. I think my life is worth this much. And that's something we talk to people about. And that worthiness piece comes up lots of different places through the journey. Like, I'm worthy of eating this great food. I'm worthy of getting this care. And you are. This is your life, your precious life. No one can be you. You are unique and individual. And living into that, I think, is the greatest gift for you and the world.
And from my patients, I tell them, if you can't afford to do the extensive lab testing or invest in a coach or whatever, do the bare minimum of focusing on improving your diet, focusing on changing your sleep patterns, doing an inventory of what am I doing? Like, why am I not feeling good? Am I going outside enough? Am I exercising? Am I making the right food decisions? And I know there's so much confusion right now with what to eat. I mean, every other day there's some new thing that we're supposed to be doing. And like you mentioned with Instagram and everything, it can be very overwhelming with what we're supposed to do. But I like to just say, start with the basics. Just change your lifestyle. That's free. You don't need me. You don't need to pay me to do that. Just start improving your lifestyles. Go out and exercise. Go and drink clean water. Focus only on water. Cut out the sugary drinks. Cut out the sugary foods. Start with a savory breakfast. All of these things are free. Sleep.
Mhm.
Basic.
Exercise, movement, meditation. Yep. It's 80% of it is lifestyle.
Yeah. And that makes such a big difference. But people want to just have somebody fix them quickly and they don't want to do the work. And it does seem overwhelming. But when I prioritize my mental and physical health 24 hours a day, it's such a part of my system that it's not extra work. I have a bedtime routine. I go to bed at a certain time. I turn off all electronics an hour before I go to bed. I have a very slow morning. I eat a certain way for breakfast and, just making sure I get out and exercise. This morning, I was making sure I got a lot of light on my forehead or sun my eyes just so that I can get out there and feel grounded and feel being outside, not for the sake of exercise, but just starting off my day, just very slow, very intentional. That helps me for the rest of my day. And it really makes a difference. None of that costs money, but it does cost some time and some commitment. And all of us are capable of that.
And I hear you building it into your life in a way that's very sustainable, enjoyable, integrated, as opposed to like doing a fad diet for 30 days and let it all fall apart. It's when you can make it part of your lifestyle like that, then you're really building health over time too.
And also as we get older, we can't get away with a lot of things that we did before, right? Now I can't have anything caffeinated after 10 o'clock because it'll keep me up all night. I can't have sugary foods and dessert and sodas or whatever at night because I'll be up all night and I don't want that. I don't want to risk my sleep. So what you got away with in your 20s, possibly 30s, you're not going to get away with in your 40s, 50s. So you're forced to make that pivot and change, right?
Oh, I think if you're listening, you'll be forced at some point. Yeah. The body's always trying to, I think that's a big thing too, is your body is being your friend. It's in sending you signals of pain or fatigue or night sweats or insomnia. It's trying to redirect you to balance. And so if you keep not listening, it will bring you to your knees at some point. I think it's better to listen sooner than later.
Which will be way more costly when you're brought to your knees than if you do the investment of time and money now to help yourself. If do a lab test, I love lab tests that just check your vitamin D levels, your iron levels, are there nutritional deficiencies going on with you? Are there hormonal imbalances? Invest in that at least just so that you can get an idea of what's going on with you and then focus on healing that part. If you're deficient in vitamin D, which most of us are now because we don't go outside the way we used to. And if we go outside, especially as women, we need to have 70% of our body exposed to the sun for 20 minutes. I mean, how many of us are going to do that? We're not men. We could run with our shirts off. So a lot of us are vitamin D deficient. A lot of us are magnesium deficient. And so once we figure that out and address that, we could see improvement in our health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the next, after we work with people on the foundations of food, sleep, stress management, reducing toxin exposure, the pieces you were talking about that are just accessible to anyone. The next level is your nutrient status, vitamin D, B12, iron, making sure you have the building blocks. If you're building that, that's, like I said, 80% of it. It's getting that in there and doing it over time consistently, not perfectly, but over time, good enough over many years. Then you're also feeling better, but you're preventing stuff from coming in later years too.
But also, I feel like if you invest in your health in your 20s and 30s, which I am, as awful as that period was when I got diagnosed with endometriosis, I'm so grateful that it completely helped me pivot. I mean, I was a college student living a college student lifestyle. I was eating a lot of junk food. I was a horrible vegetarian. I was eating a lot of sugary foods. And my body at 26 said, okay, no more. You're in pain and you might need surgery. And so that forced me to change my lifestyle, start eating healthy, start focusing on sleep, not staying up all night, but it really helped me with my transition into my 30s, 40s, and 50s. So that it wasn't such a shock to my system. What's happening to a lot of women that I deal with is they keep burning the candle at both ends until they're in their 40s. Most of them get hit, they hit a wall in their 40s, right? Is that what you're
Yeah.
noticing too?
Yep. 100%.
It's like that lifestyle catches up to them in their 40s. And then they're like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? What is this? It may or may not be perimenopause. It might be adrenal fatigue. It might be something else. Do you want to talk about what happens to us during that time?
Yeah, it's a fascinating time. I was taught, you get your period when you're a teen and then you stop and that's menopause. And in the middle is like the same. That's how I thought it went. And as I started practicing medicine and obviously my own body, I realized, oh, there's so many phases that the female body goes through with hormones. There's phases in our 20s, early 30s, late 30s, 40s. And it's really this like progression the whole time. And then if you get pregnant and have postpartum in there, that's all other phases, breastfeeding, So it's not as, I just thought it was more cut and dry. And there's so much nuance as you go through the menstruating years. And I think the 40s is this especially kind of, I'd say a little bit precarious time because the hormones are shifting again a lot. What tends to happen in our 40s as progesterone starts to decrease and estrogen starts fluctuating a lot. And because of that, I think a lot of it, because that system is more unstable, a little more volatile, the things that we were able to cope with before become very difficult to cope with. So people be like, I never had this reaction to foods. I never had insomnia before. I never had night sweats. I never had gut issues. I never had this kind of pain. I didn't have fibroids before. But because that terrain, the hormonal terrain becomes much more fluctuating, these things kind of come to a head. And I think there's also a level of spiritual and emotional development that happens in our 40s that are bringing us back to ourselves in a new way as well. And so you add all that together and it can feel like total chaos. And so that's a lot of people we see is when they're entering that time. And I think it's a call to actually heal so you can move into the next decades of your life much healthier.
And somebody mentioned, and I forgot who it was somebody that has written, maybe it was the glucose goddess. Anyway, they've recently done research that our brain shrinks 3 times in our life, and it's at puberty, pregnancy, and menopause. So if our brain is slowly shrinking, like I know my brain, everybody knows mommy brain, right? They know your brain is shrinking and you lose 30% of your brain and it's making room for you to become a mom. Your brain is very efficient. It's not going to continue to use the pathways that it no longer needs, right? So when it's going through menopause, we no longer need the parenting skills, or we no longer need to prepare to become a mother. And so it's shrinking to become the new phase of you after menopause. And that's not the end. Like a lot of people feel like once I go through menopause, that's the end. But we are in menopause longer than we're in the menstrual years, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And very few species go through menopause. Only a few species go through that. So there must be something really important about it.
Isn't that us and whales?
Yes. And I think elephants.
And elephants. Well, they're all the ones that live a long time, right?
Yeah.
And so
and they're communal creatures that value wisdom and people in their elders that can bring that.
And it can be a period of chaos until that happens. And it could be because of the brain shrinking, the hormones getting out of whack. It could be a lot of changes, no different than the time we went through puberty. But a lot of us forget about that because when we're at that age, we're anticipating, we're excited, we're becoming a woman. And so all of our friends are celebrating. But then we go to the menopause and doing it in shame and silence and isolation. But there's a lot of changes that are happening. I mean, divorce happens a lot of times during this time. Families fall apart. And because if you don't know how to handle or have a handle of on your mood, on your hormones, on your lifestyle, then it can create a lot more chaos, I feel like. And that's another reason we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So what are your thoughts about how can we smooth that transition a little bit into menopause, especially mid-30s to mid-50s, I guess?
Yeah, it's like a 20-year time period. So one thing we hold in naturopathic medicine, again, is that there is a wisdom in the body doing this. So there's nothing wrong with going through menopause. It's right. Your body isn't made to do that. It's made to go through this transition. How do we make that transition as easeful, as graceful, as maybe meaningful as possible? And one of the biggest things there, I think, is stabilizing hormones. So hormones are naturally fluctuating up and down. And you want to create, like we talked about a little bit earlier, stability in the terrain so that as those hormones, your ovaries, the hormones produced by your ovaries are switching over to mainly hormones produced by your adrenals, your body is creating a new place to land. So if the rest of your body is strong, your nutrients, your sleep habits, your food, stress management, your spiritual life, your gut, your immune system, then the fluctuating hormones have more room to land. They're not going to just rule your life because the rest of you is stable. So I think can be easing of the hormones through herbs or hormone replacement therapy. But also if you can stabilize the rest of the terrain, you're going to have a much easier time.
Can you talk a little bit about the things that happen as a result of our hormones being so deficient? Like inflammation increases during this time, and so does insulin resistance. Can you talk about, along with weight gain and all the other stuff that happens, can you talk a little bit about how we can reduce inflammation and insulin resistance? And I know it's not just about sugar. I mean, our estrogen levels were able to maintain all of that before when it was a working function at an optimal level, but we don't have that anymore. So if we're not wanting hormone replacement therapy, for example, what are some other things we can do to manage insulin resistance or inflammation in our body?
Yeah. So insulin resistance is actually quite multifactorial. I think we put all of it on food, and food is extremely important. You need way more protein, way less carbs as you're going through this transition. You need regular meals, you need exercise, you need your sleep. Like those become more non-negotiables. But I think the pieces that people don't talk about when it comes to insulin resistance, and I see this a lot in my practice, people coming in, they're like, I'm doing all those foundational pieces and I can't figure this out. One is cortisol levels and your adrenal health. So you have these adrenal glands, they sit on top of your kidneys, and they produce a hormone called cortisol. When cortisol goes way up, like in times of stress, it also increases your insulin resistance. And so being able to work on your stress management, these emotional, spiritual evolutions that are happening in our 40s is really important to attend to. I think it's a call for getting deeper alignment in our personal life. That if things, relationships, jobs, those types of things are not working for us on an emotional, spiritual level, they're going to start showing up in your physiology. So that's one big component. And I think components that people don't talk about nearly enough are things like toxicity. And we have so many toxins in our environment now. We all have to be doing a detox once a year. We all have to work on reducing that toxic exposure because that messes up insulin resistance. And then our gut health, our microbiome is so important for dealing with insulin resistance too. So again, it's like taking this terrain approach. All these things are affecting your blood sugar, not just what you're eating.
And it's also the mental health component of it, managing your stress, managing your thoughts. And in our 40s, late 30s, 40s is when a lot of repressed emotions come to the surface. I don't know exactly what the reason for that is. I don't know if we're like mature enough to handle it and it's a good time to process it, but that's also a lot of people start addressing or at least remembering things that happened in the past that they might have forgotten. And that was contributing to their health all along, but they just didn't have that conscious awareness of it. So maybe this is a good time to look into therapy to deal with your root issues for your anxiety, your depression, or trauma that you haven't addressed, because all of that is going to impact your cortisol levels, your gut health. Can you talk a little bit about the vagus nerve and its connection to your digestion and just overall? Because I think that's the one thing that really makes a good statement about the connection between mental health and physical health.
Mm-hmm. And we call there is something we call the psychoneuroimmunoendocrine system. It's a big word, but what it means is your psychology, your nervous system, your hormone system, and your immune system are actually one system. We parse them apart. We have specialists in conventional medicine that deal with all these different things. But the truth is, like, it's one system. So meaning your psychology is affecting your hormone system. It's affecting your nervous system. It's affecting your immune system. And I think that's cool. I think it's really cool because it means that you can come at working on imbalances in so many different ways. And if trauma is the thing that's starting to come up, and that's affecting your hormones, that's really real. Like, really want to validate that for people. That if you're like, hey, I think this is related to like that stressor I had, or that difficult childbirth I had, or that sexual trauma that happened in my childhood, like, you are correct. Those things, our psychology, our outlook at the world is very much affecting our hormones. The vagus nerve is this beautiful, huge nerve in the body. It goes from the brain all the way down. It affects the heart, goes into the gut, and it's an important part of regulating our nervous system in terms of, are we approaching the world in a fight or flight approach, or do we feel safe and secure? And it affects your heart. It affects how fast you digest. It affects your outlook. We're just learning more and more, all these different tools to impact this system that I think, especially for the female body, and especially in the transition of perimenopause, whether you're working on that directly on the vagus nerve, you can get a physical therapy that works on it. Whether you're doing that through meditation, whether you're doing that through trauma healing, so many ways. I don't want to leave people overwhelmed. I want you to leave with that you can impact your system in so many different ways. The hormone replacement therapy is not the only way. And so what I'm doing with people a lot is like, well, what's coming up for you now? Like, what's the leading piece that's guiding us, and where you need to go with your healing?
Yeah, and it's not about making them overwhelmed. It's about letting people know that there are solutions, and this is a good time to seek therapy if you need to address repressed emotions, because no matter, you can't outrun these traumas. You can't outrun a bad lifestyle. You can't outrun, you can't just keep burning the candle at both ends and then expect to have a full candle by 50.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think that's the empowering piece about this, is like, even with perimenopause and menopause, people are told, well, now HRT is the thing to do. And that can help to stabilize hormones, but that's not the only way. And you brought up, mind, body, spirit earlier. And it's true. Like, if you're doing work on the mind, it's also going to be helping your body. If you're doing it on past trauma, that's also going to be helping perimenopause too. There's no right way or only way to do it.
And just trusting that your body is so wise and so amazing. I mean, just the fact that I always talk about the placebo effect, that it can take a sugar pill and turn it into exactly what you need to heal. Trusting that your body can heal. We just need to get out of its way and allow it to heal by removing these toxins, removing our toxic thoughts, removing our consumption of toxic news, toxic information, just being passive consumers, and focusing on happier thoughts, focusing on just being more positive. Like, I started the Happiness Project this year just because I wanted to be proactive about, and then also as an experimenter, just to see, can I be happier by the end of 2026 if I make these little changes? And what is that going to look like? And I feel like we need to do these little experiments with ourselves and see, okay, wow, last year was really difficult. Can I make this year a better year? And every year setting a goal, like, how can I get better in this area? How can I improve my comfort zone? How can I make these small little changes? Maybe start eating more salads and reduce the sugar that you're eating this year. And then next year you add more I don't know. I mean, I would hope it wouldn't take a year to do these things, but just set little goals for yourself to be better every month. Do something new, learn something new, try to focus on something different. Like this month's theme for the Happiness Project is all about your relationship with yourself, with others, and with your faith, God. Addressing the mind body relationships with others, our spirituality, all of that, just to see if that's going to making these little changes can improve our mental and physical health.
It's beautiful. And to do it with an attitude like you're suggesting of self-love, of curiosity, of creativity, of community, versus just hating our bodies or hating ourselves for feeling this way, can we use as an opportunity to love ourselves and create more for ourselves and for our community. I think that's where the sustainability in a health journey comes from, is when you can bring that level of attitude to it.
Yeah, the more I love my body and my brain, and it doesn't matter what size it is, it doesn't matter what it looks like. I'm always in awe of everything it's doing for me every single day. The other day I stubbed my toe and it hurt so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I normally don't even think about my toe. And it does so much for me. And yet right now I'm thinking about it all the time, and it's because it hurts. Or the same thing when we get a sore throat or when we're sick, we focus on that. But we should be doing more for ourselves and appreciating all that our body does on a regular basis. And the more we love it, just like the more we love our children or our pets, the more we want to do for them. There's no way we would feed our dogs junk food and keep giving them treats all the time, because we know that vet bill is going to cost us a lot of money when they're sick, but we don't stop and think to do the same for ourselves.
Yeah. Sometimes I ask people, what if your best friend came to you telling you this? Like, what would you tell them?
Good one.
And a lot of times it's a lot more compassionate, a lot more supportive than what we offer ourselves.
Or even your child. What if your child was doing that? What would you do? There's no way you'd want them to continue to destroy their health. So we need to give the same love and compassion to ourselves. So thank you so much for this conversation. It was so good talking to you and learning from you. So can you tell us a little bit about where people can find you and connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Jenn Mann. I'm in San Francisco, California, and have a clinic called Nova Wellness. And we work with people through these issues. We work with you on the whole terrain over a period of time and really partner with people on creating that higher level of health and wellness for themselves and the lives they really want to be living. So if you're in California and you'd be interested in discussing that with us, we offer free discovery calls. You can go to our website, novawellnessmed.com. You can also find us on Instagram. And we have information blogs, we have social media too. If you're not in California, but you just want to learn more about this approach in naturopathic medicine, you can find lots of stuff there too.
Well, thank you so much again for having this conversation with me and being here.
Thanks, Nafisa. So great to spend time with you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Mental Health Break podcast. It would really help us get discovered by others if you do. And now you can text us directly and share your thoughts with us about this episode. If you're interested in joining the Happiness Project, visit drsikandri.com/happiness-project. Until next time.